Psalm 23. Sorry, it's a habit. Psalm 24. Started there yesterday, last time, however you're watching this. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. I talked a lot about that yesterday, and it's sometimes, in my opinion, everybody loses track of who's the owner. And so we got to remind ourselves, we're just stewards. We're not the owner. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Now that is it's a very important concept. Not only is everything material the Lord's, the earth and everything in it and on it. Now, it's not just the stuff, but the people. Now that, we got to think about what do we do with that? Okay, so here's my thought. Every person who ever lived on the earth was God's. They were his possession. And one of the things about God that I find most intriguing is his permissiveness. He permits us to act either as if we were his or as if we're not his. Right now I'm reading through 2 Kings in my morning Bible reading. It's just narrative after narrative after narrative, 1st and 2nd Kings both, of how it's about the kings. That's how it got its name. But they seem to kind of lose track of really, bottom line, who's in charge. See, if I think I am my own, that changes the game. As opposed to, I am not my own. See, Paul wrote, do you not realize you are not your own? You were bought at a price. And when you think theologically, you realize, so what was the price? Well, the price was the death of Jesus. I'm not my own. However, and I don't quite understand this, but there are times it's very frustrating to me, but overall, I think, wow, this is a gift. That God grants us permission to choose for ourselves. Will we act as if we are his, or will we act as if we are ours? My kids grew up under an educational schema that said children need to be taught that they are their own person. Okay. Now, this was, I have a strong opinion about this. This was a response. This came out of what has come to be called, and I think rightly so, a self-esteem movement. In other words, the objective became far less about what do these kids know, and a whole lot more about how do they feel about themselves. I read one author who said, so what we have come up with now is a whole generation of kids who love themselves, but they can't make change. And I don't think it's changed any since I read that 15 or 20 years ago. Our culture is in trouble because we have promoted the idea, or the idea has been promoted to us, that I am mine. I do what I want to do. I make my decisions. I. Me. I sound like an old guy, I realize, partly because I am, but look around and you'll see it. So what do we do about it? Well, making laws about this is not going to change anything, really. In my opinion, the most legitimate law would be to somehow create within education the objective for our students to master information, as opposed to just feeling great about themselves. But I don't know that you can even make a law like that. How would you enforce it? So what do you do with that? Well, I think it starts here. Who owns me? I think it begins with us as individuals. Do I live as though, again, from going back to last time, do I live as though I am a steward, not the owner, or am I living like I own me? No, you don't. This goes against the grain of almost every societal norm today, and I can't help that. And as I said, I'm not sure I can change it, but I can change the way I think about me. So, in verse 2, David goes on to tell us why God deserves to be the owner. Verse 2, he founded the earth on the seas and established it on the waters. He created it. The creator is the owner. He's not a lessee. He is not a steward. We are. And when we, now I know I'm going to sound a lot like a conspiracy theorist, but I really believe that when culture gave up the idea of God as creator, that was the open gate for all kinds of misunderstanding about our relationship to the world, let alone our relationship to God. Oh, and by the way, most of those who basically, in their scientific view, wanted to remove a God from the equation, it wasn't about anybody's relationship to God. If there was a God, he was made up in the imagination of people who felt they needed one. All right. Most of politics, most of sociology, most of the sciences today, they rest on the idea that not only is there no God, we don't need a God. I've said this lots of different times, but when I go out into nature, I'm not a guy that hikes in the mountains, and I'm not the guy that's going to take a hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back out on the other side. That's not me. But I do like to go look. And when I see nature, it is just virtually impossible for me to believe that any of that happened by accident. The tides in the ocean, the beauty of the mountains just west of where I live, which now I'm recording this in April, and normally in Las Vegas by April, there's hardly any noticeable snow up in those mountains, but now they're covered and beautiful. And even when they're not covered, they're beautiful. It's hard. I can't. It would take more faith for me to believe that beauty and the amazing diverse beauty that I've seen, not totally around the world, but in a lot of different parts of the world, was accidental, that it just was a coincidence, that it happened by chance over time. No, I don't have that. It's easier for me to believe there had to be a creator. There had to be what is often called a first cause. At the very least, the creator. The earth is the Lord's, the creator's, and everything in it, and the world, and all who live in it. He created it. He then has rights to it, and the ultimate right to it. I know I can make a whole lot out of this, that with bunny trails and so forth, but I can't. I'm going to bang the drum a little bit longer and a little bit louder over whose am I? Who do I act as though was the owner? I hope I never get over this, and here's why. I want to constantly be examining my ways so that I will always be asking myself, is that from stewardship or from ownership? Because the bottom line is, if I'm doing it out of ownership, I'm living in a dream world. We live in a world that is pretty much, the theme of our world is pretty much denial. We deny God, and when we deny God, then there's this cascade of other useless, dangerous, destructive denials that come out of that. And I believe a whole lot of the chaos and destruction, the evil, plain evil in the world is the result of that kind of denial. I don't want to live there. I slip into it, but I can step out of it, and so can you. And so my challenge today is, because God is the creator and the legitimate owner, I want to challenge you to I don't want you to be neurotic about it, but I think it's worth often and continually, even strenuously, to examine our lives and our responses. The step 4 in the 12 steps of recovery is we did a searching and fearless moral inventory of our lives. I'm talking about a searching and fearless moral inventory when I talk about, am I living as though I was the owner, or am I living as though I'm only the steward and God is the owner? Great time to do this inventory is at the close of a day. Reflect on my choices, my behaviors, my activities, my thoughts. Now, last thing in the last 30 seconds is, you don't have to beat yourself up about any of that. You just have to lean into God's grace and decide from this moment forward, I will consciously live as a steward. And when you fail, you just pick it up and start again because of grace. Okay, see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie.